If you're like me, watching the hit series Solo Leveling gives you a sense of inspiration, nostalgia, and urgency. But what if I told you this show gives warnings about real problems that you can indeed solve on your own? In other words, you like Sung Jinwoo can solo level the world you're facing every day. I think there are unshakable parallels between the solo leveling universe and our own, and I'm going to break it down from the perspective and philosophy of a Bitcoiner. Not a trader or a crypto bro, big difference. If you haven't seen the show, there are spoilers in this video for season 1 only, as this video is more focused on the story setting rather than the plot. This is an amazing show about the power of human will and determination with a bit of good fortune on the side. And to the fans of the show that happen across this video and unfamiliar with Bitcoin, well, the real world has some eerily similar forces at play to the ones that have been presented thus far in the series. Let me explain. It's Sir Ulrich and Are You Down with the Underground? So I'm an older millennial hanging with my Gen Z little brother, and I'm talking to him about my days playing League of Legends. And for context, I peaked at Platinum 2 about 3 years ago and quit soon after that. My brother said, well, I think you'd like this anime. It's called Solo Leveling. I'm like, what's that? He says, it's about a dude in this RPG-like world that got the ability to level up when everyone else is stuck in the class they're given. And I say, no one else can level up like a caste system? Yeah. I don't know. Why should I watch it really? Best fights ever. Okay, I'm in. But why are you wearing that? Wearing what? So I started watching, and off the bat, they provided an amazing synopsis of the condition of the world they created. A modern day setting where the very fabric of reality has been invaded by a new, or shall we say, the system with a capital S. Now, more on that later. Portals or gates begin opening worldwide, spawning all types of creatures that you might see in a Legend of Zelda or World of Warcraft game. And these portals are ranked in terms of danger from E tier all the way up through D, C, B, A, and then finally S tier. If the gates are left alone for too long, the creatures begin to pour out of them. So the dungeons on the other side must be entered and cleared by hunters, which are people like you and me. When the gates arrive, the system also introduced special abilities to a fraction of the population. These people are essentially RPG heroes come to life to protect and energize their world. Now, here are some real life parallels that I found. For one, the mana crystals in the show are an energy industry disruptor, outperforming any known energy source in efficiency, cleanliness, and safety. I can't help but see the similarities of the disruptive force Bitcoin is on the monetary industry. It's the only functioning monetary network not owned by a government. Bitcoin is a strange frontier in its own right, adding new variables to the economy continually as new groups adopt it and its value grows. What happens when a hard-capped money with no governing body is injected into society and the rules must be agreed to by the participants and cannot be changed? And the Bitcoiners are, of course, on the front line of this new frontier like the hunters in the show. Now, two things I find interesting about this comparison. One, the hunters are not altruistic. With the exception of a few, they're incentivized by their own self-interest and profitability. Hunters consist of convicts, students, firemen, poor, wealthy, older, younger, literally a grab bag of people the system selected. Now, because Bitcoin is open source technology, with the exception of people without the internet, there's no demographic that's excluded from Bitcoin. In fact, it's often called the money for your enemies. People who truly study Bitcoin aren't just looking at charts. Those charts are meaningless against the concepts that lay the foundations of why Bitcoin is going up in value. Game theory, philosophy, government policy, fiscal and monetary policy, which are different by the way, energy, history of technology adoption, and of course macroeconomics. Bitcoiners are peeling back the onion of how the world works and putting our money down on how that affects Bitcoin. And we haven't been wrong. Back to the hunters in Solo Leveling, they also have their own unique curriculum. How about human nature? You know, what happens in the dungeon stays in the dungeon. Greed, integrity, murderous hearts. They quickly learn economics and energy as the first step in a critical supply chain. It's more than just a video game made real. Their lives and those of their loved ones are at stake. There's an economic phenomenon Bitcoiners know well, and that's the Cantillon Effect. It's where the greater the proximity to the entity that creates money, the better off economically you are. You're able to consume goods before economic forces like supply and demand impact them. You're also able to have more political influence and information on the flow of money. You may not get assassinated or slayed by monsters, but pushing up against the hidden order of this world, the banking system, the way people are elected, or even how unelected bureaucrats gain power, you can't even think to contest that because they control how and when money is created and how and when rules about it change. And speaking of banking, the guilds in solo leveling are a perfect parallel. No, they aren't the government, but the governments surely answer to them. I mean, when you think about it, the guilds are filled with the anime versions of the not-so-ethical Justice League. Those hunters will use the threat of their power to enrich and expand their influence. Governments have no choice but to bend the knee to the guild collectives or face the wrath of the monsters and hunters. Banks are no different, historically taking advantage of wars, famines, pandemics. Now there's an old saying, never let a good crisis go to waste. Who was that? Oh yeah, that was Winston Churchill, winner of a very famous crisis called World War II. Then there's Sung Jinwoo, the star, the newest hero among a pantheon of all-time great anime characters. He's the lowest tier of hunter in Class E, and many in his world know him as the worst of that bunch. He's portrayed as weak, a waste of space, a liability to himself and others. Another word for liability is debt, and Bitcoiners know we live in a debt-based system that regular people are hurt by, while the elites thrive and use to never lose their wealth. But then this system grants Jinwoo what's known as the Second Awakening, and he has the power to transcend hunter tiers based on his proof of work. This unique characteristic is portrayed by him seeing the world in ways others don't. Increased natural and system-assisted perception, an invisible shop for items and equipment others can't access. I can't help but see the parallels of a person waking up to the inherent problem with the economic incentives of our world. Remember the Cantillon Effect? And realizing Bitcoin is a critical component to fixing it. And of course, once you discover a new secret, you know that governments won't like it, and banks will surely tell you it's bad. In the show, you see Jinwoo's caution around dangerous individuals and influential guilds. It's the exact same thing. Being in Jinwoo's head, you can see him between epic fights, fleshing out decisions and courses of action. So far, he's been fortunate. Or is the system ensuring the path is laid out for him to simply execute? I'm not going to convince anyone saying solo leveling is a Bitcoin parable, and I don't even believe that. That story wouldn't take well in that industry at all. The anime fan base cares more about fantasy conventions than understanding the evils and perils of inflation. Bitcoin being an option against government and banking theft is just not at the top of the to-learn list for most people, so I'm not just picking on anime fans. I do think this story, at least the first season, provides an example of how when you're given some hope, you can make changes for yourself and your loved ones. You just need to recognize the hope when you see it. And how many of you have increased your gains at the gym because of watching this cartoon? And I'm not even joking, the lifting sessions I've had after certain episodes were for sure outside the norm. But guess what? The most important thing to remember is Jinwoo always had it in him, which is why he was selected to be the player in the first place. Maybe you have something in you to break through the noise of the world and figure out for yourself why Bitcoin refuses to die. Which reminds me, their world. What if their reality is just someone else playing a game?